And this is a Fox News alert. We are just under 3 hours away from a potential government shutdown at midnight tonight. Now, the money in Washington will officially run out in our nation's capital. Now, Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid is expected to deliver an update on the progress of negotiations between the two parties very soon. But to date, negotiations have failed to produce an agreement. And this afternoon, House Speaker John Boehner told reporters that he has no plans to back away from his pledge to cut spending in Washington. Let's take a look.
We're not going to roll over and sell out the American people like it's been done time and time again here in Washington. When we say we're serious about cutting spending, we're damn serious about it.
All right, now over the course of the next hour, you will hear from both sides of the aisle on this developing story. But first, let me bring in Republican Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky. He joins us live tonight from Capitol Hill. Senator, welcome back. Good to see you.
Hey, good to be with you, Sean.
All right. Well, first of all, what did you think of John Boehner's comments? There had been some talk that maybe Republicans would negotiate. They'd give in at $40 billion versus the $61 billion. My position is I think they have no reason to give in at all, considering $61 billion for the Democrats' 2011 budget is, frankly, like spitting in the ocean.
Well, I'm kind of proud of John Boehner for standing up and saying, you know what, the last election was about cutting spending. The American people are ready for it. Our country needs it. We desperately need to do something about the deficit. $1.6 trillion. $61 billion is just the mere minimum. We really need to cut spending up here. I think John Boehner's hearing that from his members, but I think also the American people are ready for it.
Would you be unhappy? Would you ultimately even go along with a bill that cut less than the $61 billion that they had promised prior to the election?
I can't do it because, I told people that I believed in balancing the budget, and any plan I vote for has to make the deficit dramatically lower. So if last year's deficit was $1.5 trillion or $1.6 trillion, unless we're reducing that by 10 or 20% and have a plan to balance the budget over a several-year period, I can't vote for any of that. So really, I need a balanced budget amendment, or I need a 5-year plan to balance the budget. I need something significant to convince me that it's worth voting.
Okay. Well, and Paul Ryan's budget, in fairness, and I think this is important to highlight here, this budget should have been passed prior to the beginning of this budget year, which was October 1. Democrats had both houses of Congress, significant majorities. They had the White House. They failed to do it. Here we are 6 months later, and we still don't have a budget for this fiscal year that we're currently in. So this, they really caused this problem. Do you think they get away with the argument that Republicans somehow are responsible for this?
You're absolutely right. The interesting thing is, in the old days, and the old days was about 4 or 5 years ago, we used to have an appropriations bill for every bit of spending. There'd be 12 appropriations bills. They would go through committee, come out. There'd also be a budget that was passed. We didn't do any of that. The Democrats didn't pass any appropriations bills, didn't pass any budget, and then we're living in an economy, the world's greatest economy and the world's largest government is budgeting from week to week. It makes absolutely no sense at all.
All right, in the spirit of this new era of civility that Barack Obama had called for on numerous occasions, most recently after the tragedy in Tucson, let's listen to how some of the arguments went. We'll start with Louise Slaughter in the House of Representatives. This is what she had to say earlier today.
This is probably one of the worst times that we've seen because the numbers of people who were elected to Congress. I went through this as co-chair of the Arts Caucus. In '94, people were elected simply to come here to kill the National Endowment for the Arts. Now they're here to kill women.
$61 billion cut of a $3.6 trillion budget with $1.65 trillion in deficit, and Republicans are doing that because they want to kill women. Your reaction?
Well, the thing is they're trying to make it about something very emotional that's untrue. The interesting thing about health programs for poor and for poor women is they're all included under Medicaid. How would Planned Parenthood have anything to do with health care if Medicaid is out there for poor women across the country? So really it's a red herring. They want to make it about emotional issues instead of making it about an issue that they know they're losing the public on. Democrats are losing the public because they're not serious about balancing the budget. Their proposal was $6 billion for 1 year. That's about what we borrow in 1 day. So I don't think they're getting it, but they do understand they're losing the battle on spending because American people want to cut spending. So they want to make it about emotional issues that divide us rather than fiscal responsibility, which I think unifies most of the American public.
These seem to be basically the playbook that they used in 1995. Some of the comments today that Republicans that are radical and extreme, as Chuck Schumer advised everybody to say, they want to throw women and children under the bus. They don't want 6 million seniors to have dinner. They don't want cancer screening or mammograms. Let's take a look, for example, what Harry Reid had to say earlier today.
I've been married for a long time, more than 50 years. We have 1 daughter, 9 grandchildren. I love these women very, very much. One day, though, I may not be able to help them. And one of them may need a cancer screening. It's not a pleasant thought, but that's the reality of life. That Republicans want to shut down our nation's government because they want to make it harder for women to get the health services they need. But Republicans are asking me to sacrifice my wife's health, my daughter's health, and my 9 granddaughters' health.
Republicans want to shut down the government because they want to make it harder for women to get the health services they need. Republicans are asking me to sacrifice my wife's health, my daughter's health, and my 9 granddaughters' health. So Republicans want women to die and to old people to eat cat food. I mean, pretty much what they're saying.
Well, like I say, he's trying to make this into something emotional. It's interesting that the only people you ever hear on television saying they are ready that government's going to be shut down, it's the Democrats. They're all saying the government's going to be shut down, but they almost appear as if they want it to shut down so they can blame Republicans, blame the Tea Party. When you hear them in their private meetings, they say, make sure you use the word extreme, make sure you use the word Tea Party. You know, it's all to them somewhat of a cheap parlor trick. And I think really the American people are seeing through that. I mean, I'm really worried about the future of our country, and they're playing games saying their daughter and his wife won't get health care. What's that about? He's on the congressional health care plan. Should we call him and let him know that his wife and his kids are on the plan and he does have health insurance? What is he talking about?
Might be a good idea. Well, what's going to happen 2 hours and 53 minutes from right now, Senator? Do you think there's going to be at least a temporary deal? I know you're unlikely you're unlikely to support any deal that comes out based on what you're saying, because they're not talking about the significant cuts and balancing the budget, which you prefer. What do you think happens in 2 hours and, well, now 52 minutes?
Yeah, I'm having a little trouble hearing you, but I think the gist of the last thing is about, you know, what are the alternatives that we have. And the alternatives are that we believe we ought to balance the budget, have a plan. We've got a 5-year plan to balance the budget. We think there should be an amendment to the Constitution. I personally think that both sides up here have proven themselves untrustworthy, and really we won't ever balance it or have much fiscal responsibility unless we force them to do by changing the Constitution.
Yeah. Would you support Paul Ryan's budget if it passed the House and went to the Senate?
Well, I like some of the things in it. I like the entitlement reform. What bothers me about it is it takes 26 years to balance. Now, there are people, the Republican Study Committee in the House has come up with one that balances in 7 years or 8 years, and it's almost the same as my 5-year balanced budget plan. So I'm more excited about the Republican Study Committees because it actually balances, and I think the Ryan plan takes too long to balance.
All right. Senator Rand Paul, thank you for being with us. Appreciate it. We are now 2 hours and 51 minutes away. Our live coverage of this imminent government shutdown continues.